Are we good to go? Okay.
Good to go.
I'm going to set my timer so I don't go over my 12 minutes, but I'm doing 4 locations. The first one is called Ames Pond, according to Google Maps. If you park at the parking lot, it's called Julian's Bower. It was owned by Julian Janowitz, and he donated the land to Kestrel Land Trust. It's a small pond that's sort of southeast of Lake Wyola. And I'm not sure what's the best way to give directions. I could give you an address that gets you close and you can write it down, or I could direct you there. But 711 Wendell Road in Shutesbury, Massachusetts would get you pretty close to the parking lot. If you're driving there and you take the road going east north of Lake Wyola, it's called Lakeview Road. You'll go past Lake Wyola and you'll get to an intersection. And that intersection is right next to a place called Pine Brook Camp. It's like a little meeting area. And there you'll go south on Wendell Road. The other roads in that intersection are Lakeview, Locks Village, Jennison, and Wendell. Unfortunately, they all have different names. But once you turn off east Lakeview Road and you're going south on Wendell Road, it's about 0.7 miles down that road, and there's a little parking lot. The parking lot's kind of near a crossroad. I believe it's called Laurel Drive. And once you get to the parking lot, you'll see a little sign that says Julian's Bower, and it has a picture of the previous landowner who's deceased. But it's a cool spot for a bunch of reasons. The first, I guess, is it's a nice little bite-sized walk. It's about 2 miles around the lake. There's a bunch of trails. All I've done is the loop that's directly around the lake, though. It was, like I said, it was owned by a guy named Julian Janowitz. He was a sculptor and also a psychiatrist, and he donated the land along with a bunch of sculptures that are on the property. There's like this huge eyeball. There's like this door you walk through and you're supposed to envision something that scares you, and you ring a bell and you open the door and you see the lake, and there's all this, I don't know, sort of cool stuff like that. There's some marshy bits and some boggy bits around the pond, and on the far side, on the west side, there's a boardwalk that goes through a bog. So it's great if you're into like odonates and stuff like that. It's pretty great. There's pitcher plants. You'll get to like an early successional type forest, and you had great views of alder flycatchers and chestnut-sided warblers. I would say the hiking's pretty easy. It's pretty flat. There are some routes. It can get wet depending on the year. I'd say the spring or the fall would be the best time to go. If you're into like butterflies and dragonflies, I would definitely check it out in the summertime too. We've gone there twice. We've had 53 species. I won't go into too much detail, but Canada warbler was a nice one. It's probably breeding there. But we've had like 13 different warblers. Yellow-billed cuckoo is another one we were looking for that we had there. Veery alder flycatcher. You get some wood ducks and stuff like that.
I just want to add that some of the best birding is like right after you park and start walking in, like before you get to the lake loop, which is often how it is. It's like the best birding is like right near the parking lot.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think we've been there a few times.
Yeah. Does anyone need me to repeat anything? Susan does.
You're muted. Still can't hear you, Susan.
Susan, you're muted. Susan Tyler, you're still muted.
Oh.
Still can't hear you.
Thanks.
So
Well,
Kevin, you said you go to Lakeview to Wendell Road, and then it's about 0.7 up Wendell Road
yeah, and you're heading south on
Okay.
Lakeville. Yep.
south.
Yep.
Okay.
I finally unmuted. My question was, you go to Pine Brook Camp and then south to what?
You're south on Wendell Road.
Oh, it's south on Wendell Road.
And you'll go
Okay.
about 0.7 miles down.
I
And-
got that part.
Cool. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Kevin, what was the approximate number, Wendell Road? Was it, did you say 111?
Hold on one second.
7-Eleven.
7-Eleven.
7-Eleven. And maybe after we're done, I could put links to Google Maps or something if you want. The next one's similar. It's another loop trail around the lake in Pelham. It's Pelham Lake Loop. It's near Rowe, Massachusetts, Rowe.
In row.
It's in Rowe. Yeah. This is northwest Franklin County. So pretty far up there. Let's say you're heading west on Route 2. You'd go past Charlemont, and then you'd take a right on Zor Road. And if you haven't been on Zor Road, that's another good one too. And there's a nice picnic area and everything along the deer field there. But you're gonna kind of stay right on Zor Road and get onto Row Road. And then you're gonna stay right again, and it turns back into Zor Road. And that will get you to Row. And once you're in Row, it's pretty close. You would go north on Zor Road, and then it's a slight right onto Pond Road. And from there, it's just another 0.5 miles, and you're going to park at the first parking lot once you get to the lake. If you want another address that will get you close, 38 Pond Road, Rowe, Massachusetts will get you close. So this loop's a little bit longer. It's probably around 2.5 miles. It's also flat. It is pretty, has quite a lot of roots and some wet spots with boards that are laid down. So it can be wet depending on year as well. But we didn't have too much of a problem. And it mostly goes through deciduous forest with a little bit of mixed with coniferous. And there's a small stream inlet on the north side, and then it drains out the south end, and that's where you'll start your walk. And there's a bridge that goes over the water, and then you start your loop. Again, spring or fall, this is really good for us for like the hard to reach warblers that I had a terrible time trying to get, like bay-breasted warbler, and we got it there both spring and fall. Also had a really hard time getting Philadelphia vireo, and that's where we finally ended up getting it. And I think people have even seen scoters on the lake in either spring or fall.
Yep.
When we visited in the winter, it was really dead. So, yeah, so 2 lists. We had 39 species, 13 warblers, Philadelphia vireo. There's a barred owl there as well. We got all the woodpeckers, great crested flycatcher, scarlet tanager. Also a pretty hike.
There's also a lot of trails there that we just haven't explored yet. We've just done the lake loop.
There's a huge
So-
trail system there, and there's
Yeah.
there's trails that go on both the inlet and the outlet. Does anybody need me to repeat anything about the Pelham Loop trail? Okay. My next spot I'm going to talk about is Mount Toby. I had a real hard time picking one spot. Mount Toby proper generally gets all the attention, so I'm going to talk about 2 maybe lesser known spots, but we've only been here a year and a half, so maybe y'all know about this already. But Mount Toby are a group of mountains that are near Sunderland, Massachusetts, and there's a bunch of subordinate peaks as well. I think Roaring Peak is another one. So it's kind of like an oval shaped mountainy area. So to the south is Bull Hill Road. To the north is Reservation Road. And then it's also flanked by Route 47 and 116 to the east, and then Route 63 to the west. And you can access trails all along those roads. But like I said, I'm just going to focus on a couple areas. I'm going to talk about Reservoir Road, and then I'm also going to talk about the train tracks that are on the west side. And my wife told me it's probably illegal to walk on the train tracks. So just so I'm not liable, I'll say walk
on the conservation land next to the tracks.
Yeah. So Reservoir Road can be accessed off of Route 116. So let's say you're heading, I guess it's west, really it's kind of northwest. You'd go past Dunkin' Donuts, Subway, there's a liquor store and some apartments. You go past that and you take a right on Silver Tree Lane, and then you take your next right onto Reservoir Road. You probably only travel 0.25 miles on Silver Tree Lane. If you want an address that gets you close, 40 Reservoir Road would get you pretty close. And that road will turn from pavement to gravel. And then there's a parking lot at this little dammed up pond. There's a little brook that runs down and they dam it. If you're really brave and you got a good car, you could drive up a little farther and there's a water tower. And then if you're really brave, you go beyond that. And I've never done that. The train tracks can be accessed at 3 spots that I know about. On Route 66, just north of Depot Road, there's an overpass that goes over the train tracks. That's pretty obvious. You can park there. There's a Mount Toby Forest State parking area off of Route 63 as well. And this is just south of Montague Road. And this is also the trailhead for Roaring Brook Trail. It's a really beautiful trail. There's a nice brook and a waterfall. It's pretty steep with boulders and whatnot. But if you're at that parking lot, you're going to follow the trailhead and cross the power line right away. And then it descends down to the waterfall where you'll cross the train tracks there. And then the last spot is Cranberry Pond, which you can get to off of Reservation Road. And you can access that road on Route 47 or Route 63. I realize this is a lot, so I'll put some links in the chat after I'm done. The cool thing about this area is it's part of the Metacomet Ridge. So it's on a fault block and there's a bunch of cliff faces. So if you're a rock climber, there's a bunch of sport routes there. It's a great mountain bike too. The hydrology is interesting. There's a bunch of seeps that come out. It's great for ferns if you're into ferns. There's walking ferns there and maidenhair spleenwort and stuff like that. There's also some great dragonflies that are there. If you're on Reservoir Road, I've had good luck with barred owl and Louisiana water thrush, wood thrush, those sort of deep forest wet birds. I will say that Reservoir Road's it is a road, but it's kind of steep. The tracks obviously are pretty wet or are pretty flat, but I would say a prerequisite is be able to hear a train coming, be able to get on the tracks. It's so at Cranberry Pond, you're obviously near a pond and some wetter stuff, but it's kind of raised up a little bit higher, so you're not going to get warbler neck as much. You can kind of look straight out into the lower branches of the trees, which is nice. And when you're at Roaring Brook, the waterfall comes down and it drains along the train tracks, and there's steep rock faces that have boulders, and we've had worm-eating warbler there. We've had tons of Louisiana water thrush and winter wrens and common yellowthroats, American redstarts,
Blackburnian warblers.
Mm-hmm. And then the one off of 63 near Depot Road, I wouldn't say I've seen anything noteworthy, but it is another place to go. And there are some swamps there, and it gets ducks and stuff in the spring and fall.
Did you say birds?
least
Of a bird.
flycatcher at Cranberry Pond. Yeah, really good. I'm gonna try to keep it moving. This last spot, unfortunately, is like there's a ton of different roads with names, so it's gonna get confusing. I already know it, but it's a spot that's near the Connecticut and the Sawmill River near Montague. If any of you know where Lady Killigrew Cafe is, they have nice, tasty sandwiches. It's kind of near there. But I would say the birdiest way to get there, if you're coming from the south, is off of 47. And there's a little turnoff on 47 that's a scenic view. And just past that is called Falls Road. And you take a left on that, and essentially you keep bearing left until you get to South Ferry Road, and then there's a little bridge that crosses the Mill River. Sawmill River. Thank you. Yeah, that's an important distinction. The Sawmill River. And often we'll just park there off on the side and walk those roads. Generally, so the roads that are around there are Lower Meadow Road, and this leads to the Montague Wildlife Management Area. It's fish and game managed area. South Ferry Road, Wills Ferry Road, and Old Greenfield Road are all right there. So I would say the best birding would be when you're at the bridge to go straight and take a left on Wills Ferry Road. There's all this shrubby, meadowy, old farmland. And we've recently had some good luck. There's red poles there and waxwings.
Evening grosbeaks in the past, and
Sarah's had a clay-colored sparrow. And when you go along there a little ways, there's a gravel road called Lower Meadow Road, and it's really nondescript. There's no sign. It looks like a field approach for a farmer, but it takes you to this public access for Montague WMA. And the road can get a little bit muddy, and there can be potholes. So if it's pretty wet, I mean, I check it out, but I wouldn't destroy the poor farmer's road or anything. And once you get to the WMA, there is a parking lot, sign, and a little, like a little gate and everything. But in there's farm fields, there's the Sawmill River, there's some wooded spots. So it's a nice mix of stuff. If you were to go the other direction, instead of turning left onto Lower Meadow Road, you went right onto Old Greenfield Road, then you're in the farm fields, which maybe most of us would think is boring, but we've had horned larks, snow buntings, eastern meadowlark, vesper sparrow, Lapland longspur, so all those field birds you hope to see.
There's like a flock of 200 horned larks there with occasional snow buntings. So it's a good spot. So right, you have Sawmill River, Connecticut River, all those meadows, farmland, the scrubby, shrubby stuff. We had blue-winged warbler in there as well. The forest, you've probably had about 12 warblers in there. It's pretty easy walking. You're on pavement, which is flat, or you're in a farm field, which is flat. And I'll just, one other note, and then I'll be done. In the farm field in the WMA, there's a really nice shrub line, and it's got sumac and briars and stuff like that. And we've had orange crowned warbler in there in the spring, which is always a good one to get. I would say, I guess the only other thing is people do hunt that pretty regularly, so be careful if you're there in the hunting season. I guess the only other, I'll say one more thing. It's great for raptors too. There's a couple of eagle nests. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but there are a couple there. There's a barred owl, I know that's there, and we've seen the regular raptors like broadwing, red shoulder, and red-tailed. And that's it. I'm just gonna be quiet here for a second and let people do their thing. But while they're doing that, I'll put links to the. Does anyone have any
parking
questions?
locations.
No questions.
Did a great job.
Good job, Kip.
Doesn't look like there's any questions at the moment. If anyone has any questions, we'll have other chances too. So, so the next person who's going to tell us some sites in Franklin County is Jeremy Coleman. Jeremy.
Hi, I'm going to share my screen if that's all right. I assume that's all right. So is everyone seeing this?
Go for it.
Okay, well, it should be happening now. Is that correct? Or, yeah, hang on. I think I got to do one more thing. Share. I am sharing. So you don't want to see my desktop, but does this work?
Yes, we see bird finding in Franklin County, Power Canal.
Okay, good. So, Kevin and Sasha had some great sort of out of the way areas, and I'm sort of hitting on the probably the most well-known areas, but maybe you'll learn a little bit, especially if you haven't been there, obviously. And also a comment about Kevin's, some of the places Kevin mentioned. Pelham Lake is a place where you get, if you get waterfall fallout conditions, especially, either spring or fall, you can get pretty interesting birds there. I've had Caspian tern there on occasion, and twice actually. And the other thing is, if you're going through Rowe in June, there's a cliff swallow breeding colony on the Rowe town offices, and the town garage, which is right by a little pond there. So that's there aren't, the cliff swallow is declining, and it's one spot to find them. So in any case, the Power Canal, probably most of you've been birding and all and know the Power Canal. And of course, if you're Lynn Pellin, you live there. So anyway, from Turner's Falls, you take Avenue A south and you turn right onto 11th Street and you turn left onto G Street, and you're coming right down here. And so then you come right down onto what is called, you go through a yellow gate onto Migratory Way. And that's the Power Canal. And let's see here. There have been 211 species on the Power Canal itself from 2,300 checklists, and there's probably some stuff that's not even on there because not everyone eBirds it to the Power Canal. Mostly you're looking for waterfowl there, but the woods along the, I guess that's the west side, there's pine woods, and they are, they can always have, during migration, they can have good passerines, and there's a lot of breeding birds in there as well. And you can also walk up the power line to a path which runs right along the Connecticut River, and just to the west, and that can be very good during migration as well. So fall migration for waterfowl, really October and November are the months, maybe late September. And for spring waterfowl migration, March all the way into early May. So, and then of course there's the winter. And in the winter, if there's ice, which there isn't at the moment, you will get many, sometimes hundreds of gulls roosting on the ice. And if there's water, often it'll be right along the edge. And waterfowl. And the best time of day in the winter is definitely the late afternoon. First of all, the sun is at your back, so you get better visibility. And all the gulls and the waterfowl return to roost on the canal. And, they're off on the Connecticut River or in the fields feeding during the day. In spring and fall, so very early is good if you're looking for waterfowl, because they'll disperse pretty early, and then late in the day when they return, or even during the day, you can get birds. Sometimes they'll come in and sit down only for 10 minutes. I've had like big flocks of widgeon there, for instance, or some pintail or something, and they often will just stay for 20 minutes and take off again. And, you know, you sort of want to look for fallout conditions, meaning clear conditions where the birds leave. When the birds leave, they're going under favorable migration conditions, and then they hit our area and suddenly there's a storm or rain or fog, and it will bring them down. And so those are the times when we get some of the best waterfowl on the canal. And so, you know, there's all kinds of great stuff. I mean, for geese, there's probably all the geese species that we can see turn up there. You know, besides Canada, there's always, every year, there's quite a few cackling geese that appear there. Barnacle geese, white-fronted, Rosses, pink-footed, Brant have been there. Here's a barnacle goose from this fall. And also swans. Here's some tundra swans in this photograph that popped in one spring 2 years ago, I think. For dabbling ducks, pretty much all the eastern dabbling ducks will turn up there at one time or another, and ditto with diving ducks, all the scoters, not that they're common, but they will turn up there. Merganser species, both barrows and common goldeneye, ruddies, redheads, canvasback, the grebes. And if you do get a fallout, say, for instance, there's a lot of grebes and they're over at Barton's Cove and places where they tend to be pretty far out. If you get them in the canal, you can see them pretty easily. Gulls, you know, again, all the gull species. David Sibley had California gulls there recently, last winter. It was there very briefly, but you know, views, a lot of times bald eagles will come through and scare up the shore birds, and you get great views of eagles. So, you know, always an interesting place. And one thing I meant to mention, so if you come down Migratory Way, where the star is, there's a parking area, and that happens to be pretty close to the best places to look for waterfowl. But this area that I'm circling is probably the most productive. But again, you know, birds can be anywhere along the length of the canal. So then the other place I was going to talk about was the Montague Plain, which is a place that I've spent a lot of time, and I'm interested there not just in birds, but in Lepidoptera, both moths and butterflies, and also I've been sort of trying to find all of the plants in there that I can. But it's a plain barren. It's pretty interesting little habitat, and I've noted 4 different places because it's pretty big. And so there's a road called Old Northfield Road, which I labeled. And where there's a major power line that it crosses right here, and area number 1, right along there, it's a place that is favored by red crossbills. So past few years, and then another 3 of the past 4 years, we've had good crossbill invasion in there. And if you want on the road area, this area right here has been very productive generally. 2 is the site of the old, I don't know, what is it, the Montague Motorcycle Ramblers. Anyway, there used to be motorcycle clubhouse in there, which they took down. But there's a parking area right here, and you can park here and walk in. And one loop that I often make, which I think is 2.5 miles, but it's pretty much easy walking, except it is a little bit, there's an uphill right in here where I'm waving my mouse. But you can go from the parking area along the power line and down along this power line. This area up in here along the power line is deciduous forest, so you're actually out of the plane a little bit. And during migration, it can be pretty good. And then you can take a left at this power line and then cut back along Plains Road, which used to be a road which went all the way. It still does go all the way through, but you will need a 4-wheel drive vehicle with some clearance to navigate it. Plains Road, though, from Turner's Falls Road going all the way into here has been recently all regraded. It used to be, you know, this area with lots and lots of deep potholes because, which was almost like going through a pond landscape to drive in there, but they recently did some work on the utility poles in there and they graded it and flattened it. So you can drive right into here now. And again, there's a lot of, you can walk the power lines or find some paths, and it's all, they're all interesting. And then number 4, so one of the species that breeds in the sandplainer is whippoorwill. And area number 4, which is right here, this is kind of the concentration for whippoorwills. If you drive in here at dusk and start and listen in tonight, you'll hear a lot of them. So anyway, there's been 161 species that I could see from eBird, but the notable breeders are whippoorwill, field sparrow, prairie warbler, pine warbler, chestnut-sided, blue-winged hermit thrush, red-breasted nuthatch, red crossbills, and you know, spring migration. You know, something, this is not really March into early May. That's a copy and paste mistake. You know, it's really late. It's really late April into May, and then for breeding, obviously into June. And for rarities, there's been red-headed woodpecker, summer tanager recently. Someone's had a long-eared owl in there. White-winged crossbills for a little bit this fall. There were breeding hooded warblers some years back, and although I was skeptical at first, the report was made by some guys who were doing banding surveys for a summer from UMass. And also there's a report of Chuck Will's widow that happened in there. So that would be, you know, that would be a really good bird for inland Massachusetts. So I made a little PDF of this information from this PowerPoint. And this is my email address. And if you want me to send you the PDF, which shows all the slides, I'd be happy to do that. So I'll just give you one more second to write that down. Then I will stop sharing my screen. And if there's any questions, you could ask, otherwise I'm all set.
Looks like we're all set for questions. And again, if you have something, we'll have another chance in after Sarah. So Sarah?
I have one question I wanted to ask. It's Gmail what for your email?
It is J. Coleman, my name,
Yeah.
Arch, A-R-C-H, at gmail.com.
.com. Okay,
Yep.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I think we're all set. All right, Sarah, thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about something that has saved me during COVID. I took on a project of doing all the Quabbin gates in Franklin County. And it was just a personal little project. It was for no reason in particular, except that I frequently bird with my partner who is a non-birder. So I had to pick places that had other interesting features, which these do. And we used to walk down at the regular Quabbin, down in Quabbin Park, but during COVID, that became just terribly overrun with people, just awful. So we decided to start doing the North Quabbin gates, or I decided. And it's just been a lifesaver. They're just lovely. There's not too many people, but there's enough people around that you don't feel spooky going by yourself. And all these old roads going into the reservoir are easy to walk on. It's a gradual grade, if at all. And they're just great. So I'm going to talk about two of them, my two favorite ones. But first, I want to do a share screen to show you what I'm talking about. Do I just hit share screen and then it happens?
You hit share screen and then you have to, there's something that'll appear at the top where you have to say enable sharing or something.
Okay. Have to pick a file maybe? No. All right, let me it's down at the bottom. How do I get back out of this? I got to find, what I want to show you is this great little, it's the Quabbin fishing map. And
Sarah, can you have that up on your screen?
well, I'm trying to find it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that's what I'll try to do and get rid of the people.
Yes, get rid of us.
Yeah. Here it is. Okay, now it's on my screen. Now what do I do?
Now you should press share screen, which should be a green button.
Yeah.
So I go back to Zoom.
Mhm.
Sarah, minimize the document you want to share.
There you go. We got it.
You can see it?
We can see it.
Excellent.
We can see
Okay.
the upper half of Quabbin right now.
Yeah, well, that's where we're going.
Great.
So this map is on the website, on the Quabbin website. If you get rid of the little people on the right, you can see it says Quabbin Reservation Fishing Map. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so, and you can download this and then you carry it in your pocket, because some of these places you might lose your phone for a little bit, not for long, but just for a little bit. So if you come up from the south, here's Route 9 into Beltran, and here's the main visitor center. And then 202 goes north all along the west side of the Quabbin, all the way up to New Salem, all the way, keep going up to Orange. If you keep going, you'll end up in New Hampshire. And this would be good for the person, I can't remember who you are, that lives in Nashua. You could come down Route 2 and you could drop right into these gates. And so Franklin County starts with gate 15. That's over on the left here. 15, 16, 22, 29, 30, 31, 33, 34, and 35. And I'm not sure about 37, but I definitely know that 40 is in Worcester County. 40 you might know of, that's the old Dana Common. That's a very well-known walk. It's a lovely walk. But the first one I want to talk about is gate 22, which is over here on the west side. And you come in just south of the town of New Salem on Shutesbury Road. It goes in and then it continues on down to the shoreline, and right about where the number is where the gate is, and you have to park. And it's about a mile-long walk. As I said, it's a dirt road that's well-maintained, and the little T means there's a toilet. So you know that vehicles sometimes can drive down in there too. During the fishing season, they have scattered porta potties around the lake. And so it's a lovely walk, really. And it goes through forest. Quite a bit of it is in the forest, and some of the forest is deciduous, mixed deciduous, and some of it you'll go through patches of hemlocks, and you follow along the Hop Brook. And one of the interesting features about the Hop Brook is there's a USGS water quality station in there, and they have a little placard, and you can read about that, and you cross over the brook, and that happens to be where there's the brook and a lot of hemlocks, and there's a lot of good woodland warblers in there in the spring. And then you pass a couple of places where it opens up a little, where you can tell there's old fields where there might have been a house. Sometimes there's a lot of stone walls in there. Sometimes you can find the foundations. You can find a road that if you turned left on and walked, you'd end up in the center of New Salem. That's New Salem's South Main Street. And then you keep going and you end up on the shoreline. And you can see you end up right where the yellow T is. And you can look across, and somewhere out in here, there's a lot of sandbar, and there's a platform with for an osprey nest, which often has an eagle standing on it, but the ospreys do come there in the summer. And you could also look across and see where people fish over here on this shoreline. So, you know, one of the beauties about walking in any Quabbin Gate is you get to the water. And so anything can happen, particularly in waterfowl migration. Like March and October are great times to go there for that. You might turn up something unusual. And all summer long, the loons are out there, and they are nesting and calling, and bald eagles are back and forth all the time. So, you know, if you don't even get anything walking in, you've got a beautiful view, and there's always something interesting happening on the lake. And then it's an easy walk out. You just walk back out. And one thing that's kind of interesting about this is right before you get to where you park, you pass a little marsh, which happens to also be an eBird hot spot. It's called the Shutesbury Road Marsh. And that's good during the spring and the summer for birds that love cattails and beaver ponds. It's a big beaver flowage in there. And you know, it's a great place to go in the winter. I've been in there on snowshoes and skis. Just any time of year, really, you'll find something. So the next one I want to talk about, get back in your car, drive all the way up to the corner of 202 and 122 and turn right and head east, and you get to gate 33. That's my next favorite gate. And gate 33, you can park for that right on Route 202, and you can see the gate, or excuse me, 122, you can see the gate and you can see the 33, and there's room there for 4 or 5 cars. And then if there's more people, they'll tend to park on the road. And again, this is another nice dirt road, easy grade down to the lake. It's a little more than a mile, maybe like 1.4 miles. And this one allows bikes, so you can ride your bike there. And for birds, it's very interesting because it starts out, you're on a big wetland there. And if you look at this map, over here, you've got North and South Spectacle Pond. And from the lower, the South Spectacle Pond, the marsh is attached to that. And so there's a lot of action there between ducks and all kinds of birds back and forth. There's almost always a red-shouldered hawk parked there, hunting things, and other raptors will be in there. After the marsh, you get to a crossroad, which I'm going to talk about at the end. And then you get to Bassett Pond. And sometimes you'll see people fishing there, and there's always some kind of duck on Bassett Pond. Often ducks like hooded mergansers or something that may not necessarily want to be on the big lake. So that's a nice knoll place. After the pond, you get to you get to the big power line. There's a power line that isn't shown on this map. So then you get to the power line, and then you're out there with prairie warblers and anything that might like to be out in the open. And after the power line, the historic thing is an old mausoleum back in there, left over from when there was a cemetery there. And you can see that. And then you keep going and you get to the shoreline. It's a great shoreline. You can sort of tell, you can't really tell from this map, but it merges with gate 35 down here. And there's a lot of fishing. Gate 35 goes all the way down here. Gate 33 just ends right there. And this is where there was a snowy owl this past fall. And that was sort of an unusual, exciting thing. But there's often ducks that will go back up in here. You can walk around the shoreline depending on the water level. Right now it's really good. You can walk down here. This road is paved, and which fascinates me, because you think about the Quabbin and how when they built it and they were filling it in the late 30s. And, you know, when did we start having a lot of cars? When were Model A's? 1931, and they were already paving roads way up here in the North Quabbin area, and Athol and Orange had paved roads, and then boom, they flooded them out. So it's just fascinating to me that the pavement's still there. And it's probably the original layer of pavement. I know, it's just, there's a lot of things I think about when I'm out there besides birds, and that's one of them. But if you look at this map, the last thing I want to tell you about is how you can combine it all. And you can park at any one of these, and it's not very obvious on this map, but in between, if you came in either 29 or 30, you get to this crossroad here. This is called Regulating Dam Road, because there's a, and this is the fishing area, boat launch, 31 to that. But you can walk all the way from 29, past 31, past 33. You can go over to 34 and down, or you can cut down here, go all the way down. You can make like a 7-mile trip if you want to. And you can do it on bikes. There's very few areas that allow bikes. So it's kind of a nice area to throw a lot of other things into if you want to. That's it.
Thanks, Sarah. Does anyone else have any other
No,
questions?
thank you very much. One thing I wanted to say about what Sarah was talking about is if you go with a friend, you can park a car at gate 29 and a car at gate 37, and you can do about a 6.5, 7-mile hike from 29 all the way down to 37. Also, there's a little better map for hiking that you can get at the Quabbin Visitor Center that's a little more detailed than the one that the fishermen use. But it isn't available online.
I just had a comment. I found a bicycle map online too.
Yeah.
Which ways, which paths you can use for bicycling, because not all of them are open to bicycles. I haven't actually tried it, but I thought I might sometime.
Yeah, I was one evening, I was down fishing Bassett Pond, and it was an American bittern that was calling in the evening there. It was pretty cool.
Sarah, I think you had something in the chat too. Someone asked about if you're willing to share your email, something about hiking in the White Mountains. So you might want to check the chat. So I don't know if we have any other questions for our presenters at all. It was a lot of great information, and thank you so much for our 4 presenters this evening. I learned a lot. I have not been to Franklin County very much birding, so it makes me very excited to explore new areas. And thank you all for joining us on one of our workshops. We do have another one coming up next Wednesday. It's on feeder birds and the Great Backyard Bird Count. And then we will be planning some others in February. We try to have about 3 workshops a month. And of course, they're in the Hampton Bird Club newsletter, which will be out the first week in February. And if you're not a member, but you want to join the workshops, you're welcome. You can go to the Hampshire Bird Club website, and it will have a link to the newsletter, and it will list our workshops on there. So thank you all.
I have a question, Laura. I know some people who want to know where they can see the recording, hear the recording. What do I tell them?
That will be on the website as well.
On the education
On the
page?
website.
on the education page?
Yes.
And how soon is that up?
I guess that's up to Lisa. Or no, not Lisa, Jan. I'm not sure. So maybe a few days.
Okay.
Yeah.
This was great. Thank you so much, you guys. It was wonderful.
Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. See ya.
Bye.
Thanks a lot. It was great.
Thank you.
Thanks to all the presenters.